Why moving abroad from your collapsing Western country is not cutting and running, and what to do about, but what about my family? If you decide to leave the collapsing Western world, I'm going to dig into both of those excuses, and they are common excuses. In this very video slash podcast slash live stream, I am Caleb Jones. This is Unchained CEO, location independent income through your own location independent business, being free from your soul sucking horrible 9-to-5 job, freeing yourself from the collapsing Western world in which you live, moving to a less bad country, or at least setting up an international backup plan and doing all these things for very little money, because these things don't cost a lot of money. We have a lot to cover today, and I'm going to cover some topics that are going to sound like don't match the main topic today, which is, but I'm cutting and running. You're just cutting and running. You need to stand and fight. This is a video for video slash live stream slash podcast. For those of you who think, and there's a lot of you who think, if you leave, you're just cutting and running. You're letting the bad guys win. You need to stand and fight for your country. Stand and fight for America. Fuck yeah. You got to stand and fight. And those of you who say, well, what about my family? I can't leave my family. Well, what about my cousin? What about my brother? What about my dad? Address all those in great detail now. Hang on a minute. Let me check the technology here. If you're watching the video version of this, you can see that I have my 2 bags packed. So right now I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, specifically Scottsdale, Pink Firefly's apartment. First thing tomorrow morning, very early, I fly to Asuncion, Paraguay, which means I'm going to fly from Phoenix to Houston, then from Houston to Panama, then from Panama to Asuncion. Then I have 1 day to recover in Asuncion, and then I get on another plane to go to Uruguay, which is only about an hour away, for our Get to Know Uruguay event with Billy and some other people. And I'll be there for 4 days, and then finally I will be settled back in Paraguay as of next Sunday for the next 3 months. So I am very happy to not be traveling anymore. I'm going to miss my wife a lot. We're starting to get sad. But it'd be nice to not be getting on a plane every week or every other week. Plane or train every few days. What I've done is, I think I mentioned this on a prior live stream. What I did is this year I took my entire international travel schedule and mashed 85% of it into 1 month, which is the month of June. So I have 2 more little trips to take, and then I'm settled again. So it's kind of nice. Should we answer a few questions really quick before I get started? Yeah, let's do that. Getting out of the UK now at a critical point from the result of the election. Yeah, we're going to talk a lot about elections today because they're a big thing. People who say you got to stand and fight, you're cutting and running. The implication is there's someone you could vote for who will fix this problem. And what people don't realize, particularly people on the right, is that the very people you're voting for are directly contributing to the collapse of your countries, including UK, including Canada, and certainly the United States. Trump supporters. Get ready. So yeah, thoughts on Bitcoin's price. I am a Bitcoin maximalist officially, and so I don't care what the price is. And you shouldn't care either, unless you're if you're a Bitcoin day trader, then you should care. If you're buying and holding, and the minimum amount of time you should hold any investment is about 4 years, then you shouldn't care. The issue is not Bitcoin's price today. The issue is Bitcoin's price in 4 years, which is going to be way more than, what is it at right now? 55,000? Let's look it up here. Yeah, 55,800. Yeah, not a big deal. It's fine. It's fine. It's if you try to time the market, you're going to get slaughtered. This is why people lose money in Bitcoin. I've talked about that many times in past lives, in past blog posts and blog articles, podcasts. I've made big money on Bitcoin 3 times now, and all 3 times it was not because I tried to time the market. I bought low and I sold high, and that's it. It's very simple. You say it's best to have 2 active projects at one time. I say 2 active projects is the maximum, not the best. The best is 1 project. 2 is second best, and that's it. That's your max. Is it okay to have a 3rd project? And the 3rd always is a habit building goal. No. If you're trying to improve something, no, that's not good. It's not good. No. I've talked to people who said there is nowhere to run, and that the only solution is parallel societies. What does parallel societies mean? Don't know what that means. There is nowhere to run is another excuse, which I've addressed on different live streams, different podcasts. Yes, there is. I'm in Dubai. It's great. I'm in Paraguay. It's great. Two radically different countries, both of whom are great places to go get to. And I've said 10,000 times, my second home in Paraguay, if America collapsed tomorrow, people in Paraguay would not even notice the difference. And that's a literal statement. These people who think America equals the entire planet, no, it doesn't. And I talk about it in Dubai. I talk about this in my books too. Would Dubai collapse tomorrow if America collapsed? No, Dubai would have some problems for a while, then it'd be fine. Paraguay wouldn't even notice. So there's nowhere to run is another bullshit excuse, particularly said by Americans who don't understand the world. So, yeah. Take a drink of water. We'll get to our topic. We have a lot to cover today. A lot. Okay, hang on. Let me get my notes here. Usually I don't need this many notes, but today I'm going to need a lot of notes. So we have lots of facts and data about the collapse of the West and the collapse of the United States just in the past few weeks. It's getting worse and worse every few weeks. Parallel societies is basically people building community in the woods, for example, to escape government tyranny. Libertarians talk about this. Yeah, some extremist libertarians talk about this. I'm a libertarian. I'm a minarchist libertarian. I'm not an anarchist libertarian. That's fine. If that's something you would do anyway, if you love nature and you don't mind living in a commune, fine. That's fine. If it's not something you would do, then no. You should live the life that you want. I would love, look, I'm going to do this probably next year. I would love to, now that I've been to Scotland, I still have a video coming up about that. I'm in love with Scotland, the landscape. So I'm going to get a little cabin, little cottage somewhere in the middle of mountains, Scottish Highlands, and just hang out there for a month. I'd love it. Now, could I live there 12 months a year and be happy? No. Eventually I need a city. And it's the same thing with cities. This is me. I love cities, but could I live in a city 12 months out of the year? No, drive me nuts. So that's why I have Paraguay and Dubai, the best of both worlds. The best of both worlds. Those of you who are old know what that is because you had daughters. I took my daughter to the Hannah Montana concert movie when she was little. The best of both worlds. That's how I know all these kids songs. This happens to your dad. How important is it to have people in your life that believe in you and hold you accountable? Boy, you are touching on a topic that I have not talked about publicly. I've only talked about at the London seminar that I did. A whole new set of techniques that I have not talked about. I will probably talk about this in a few months. I may write a book about this. And that's one there's 7-8 aspects to this thing that I'm talking about. And that's one of them is people in your life who are, I can't talk about it. But the answer to the question is extremely important. You need people in your life who love you, who are a net positive. There are people in your life who love you who are a net negative. Some of you have moms that are terrible. And your mom loves you, but she's terrible. She screams at you and bitches at you and says, where's my money? Yeah. So you need people in your life who love you from what's coming and what is actually already here. You need people who love you. I've mentioned on my other channel, I've rejiggered my entire personal life. So I can't talk about until about October, but you need a lot of people who love you. Yeah. Very important. All right. Let's get to our topic here. So there's an island for sale in Scotland for $600K with a tiny house. Not interested? Sure. No, I'm not dropping $600K into an island in the collapsing Western world. No, I'm not buying any real estate anywhere in Western Europe. Thank you very much. Those of you who believe, and this is a scale, this is a spectrum. Those of you who believe strongly or kinda that if you leave the collapsing USA or cuckoo Canada or suicidal Europe or authoritarian Australia, who leave these places as they're on their way down, you believe it's an act of cowardice and it's an act of giving up. Well, you're letting the bad guy. Here's the 3 or 4 excuses they use. You're letting the bad guys win. You're cutting and running, which means you're a pussy. You have to stand and fight. I'm going to stand and fight for my country. And one of you just mentioned this. There's nowhere else to go. Okay. There's another set of you who do understand that you should get the fuck out, but then you give me the bullshit excuse about what about my family? And when you say family, it is usually extended family. What about my idiot 22-year-old brother? What about my mom? What about my cousin? What about my uncle? You know, that would be horrible. Just leave them to the wolves and I leave and I live a great life. And okay, I'm going to just address both those today. I have addressed those before in separate little quickie videos. I'm going to address those in much more detail today. Okay? While you are literally being irrational, you're literally not thinking clearly. And hopefully by the end of this, you will understand how irrational you're being. I'm going to give you, as always, facts, data, and objectivity, which is how I make my decisions. I make my decisions not based on my political views, not based on my feelings or emotions, not based on my hopes. I hope this will happen. I hope Trump builds a wall. Not based on how I think things should be. Well, things should, you know, if I elect, he said he would do it. So if I elect him, he'll do it because he said it. How I think things should be. I only take action based on objective reality, based on data I can verify. That's it. I take my feelings out of it. And I've been doing this now for about 20 years, and I live a dream life in terms of my lifestyle, in terms of my travel, in terms of how much money I make, in terms of the businesses I work on, in terms of my personal life, in terms of my family life. I live a dream life, far exceeding anything I've ever imagined. And that is the direct result of me taking actions based on objective, rational reality and not my hopes, feelings, political opinions, views, you know, all those other things, which is what most of you are doing. So let me give you some data points just from the last few weeks, okay? In terms of the collapse of the Western world and the collapse of the United States, because that's the spearhead of the Western world. Let's see. First one, I got to check my notes here. First one, and some of you have already brought this to my attention. Thank you very much. I already knew about this. The petrodollar, the end of the petrodollar. Now, if you didn't know, here's how this works. Exactly 50 years ago, Saudi Arabia and the United States made some kind of agreement. It was not an official agreement. That's where the news is getting wrong. They signed a treaty saying that's actually not true. It was a behind closed doors handshake agreement. There was a treaty, but it didn't specifically say this, but there was an agreement where Saudi Arabia and OPEC would agree to sell oil to the entire world only using US dollars. So in other words, if you were China and you had to buy trillions of barrels of oil from Saudi Arabia, you couldn't just give them Chinese yuan. You had to go to America, go to New York, buy trillions of dollars in dollars, then give the dollars to Saudi Arabia. And this helped America and helped the US dollar stay the reserve currency of the world. One of the primary reasons the US dollar is now the reserve currency of the world is because of the petrodollar. Because OPEC agreed, we're going to force all countries anywhere in the world who want our oil to go to you, America, and get your dollars first and then sell them in dollars. Then they can sell it back to them anything they wanted to. So it was an artificial way of propping up the American empire. It's kind of a smart idea from the elites back in 1974, which is when this was done. I was 2 years old when this happened. The big news is that, yes, it is President Nixon, correct. President Nixon did a lot of interesting stuff, a lot of horrible stuff, but some smart stuff. Nixon's a very interesting character. Anyway, that is correct. Nixon is correct. Just a few weeks ago, early June, the agreement expired, and MBS, the very young, very interesting ruler of Saudi Arabia, decided to not renew it. Which means several things. For the first time in history, or at least in modern history, OPEC and Saudi Arabia, which is where most of the oil of the world is, outside of like Venezuela, places like that, are now going to sell their oil in other currencies besides the US dollar. The US dollar no longer has a monopoly on oil sales around the world. This is very bad for the United States. Now, is it now? Again, objective and rational, not feelings. Does that mean the American dollar is going to collapse tomorrow? Oh my God. No, because that's a lot of what news outlets say. Oh my God, the dollar is fucked. No, as I've said many times, the US dollar will collapse in your lifetime, but it will take a long time. Saudi Arabia still has hundreds of millions, if not trillions of dollars in USD. The rial is pegged to the US dollar. There's still lots of ties with Saudi Arabia and the US dollar. That's not changing anytime soon. But It shows another data point as to where the direction of the United States is going, which is down. In a few years, this is going to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. It's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse and worse. This is another feather in this cap of American collapse. This is big news for Saudi Arabia to have the balls to do this. Say, you know what? No. We're going to sell to Russian rubles. We're going to sell in Chinese yuan. We're going to do all kinds of other stuff. We're not going to use your dollar anymore if we don't want to. We're still going to use the dollar to a degree, but we're no longer locked into the dollar. This is extremely bad news for the United States, the American empire, and the US dollar. Not today, not tomorrow, not this year, but in your lifetime. And as I've said, the collapse of the United States, Canada, Europe will occur in your lifetimes. To do nothing about it right now means you are being irrational and stupid. Nothing other than voting for Trump, which is making it worse, which I will cover in a minute. Let me check my notes here. Just for reference, the top 8 currencies used in the world, here they are in order. The US dollar is number 1 by far and going down. The next one is the euro and going down. Third one is the Chinese yuan and going up. Next one is Japanese yen, which is just kind of sitting there, going down slightly. Next one is the British pound, going way down. Then you have this large gap. Those are like the top. So what is that? Top 5. Then you have this large gap. You have 3 at the bottom: the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar, and Swiss franc, which basically are like, those would be like diversification investment vehicles, not mainstream currencies. None of those will become main. No one's going to say the Australian dollar is now the mainstream currency to have the world. It's like that. So that's the first one. So remember I said this. You're going to hear more about this over the next few years, how all the oil is shifting out of the US dollar and going to other currencies, primarily the big scary one, which is the Chinese currency. This is combined, by the way, with China bringing on their new China coin, cryptocurrency. That's going to happen first. So you combine those two things, crazy shit's going to happen, and none of it will be good for the United States / the Western world. All right, next data point. And again, this all has to do with, oh, you got to stand and fight. What president would you have elected to make sure that Saudi Arabia would have kept the USD? Would Trump have done that? No. These are not solvable problems anymore. I've said many times, if you wanted to save America, your only option is to invent a time machine and go back 25 years to the 1990s when it could have been saved. That window closed as of George W. Bush in the early 2000s. I've said this many times. There's nothing you can do now to save the United States, Canada, or Europe. It's mathematically impossible now, both fiscally and culturally. There's no turning this around. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse until it collapses in your lifetime, no matter who you fucking vote for or what religion you are in those things. Okay. Next data point is, I mentioned on a live stream a week or two ago, I had someone come to my events here in Phoenix who had top secret military clearance, who was active military. And I mentioned something he told us in passing. He said, by the way, now let me rewind this. Who do you think are the biggest, most supportive, patriotic supporters of the United States? What group would be the biggest, most, America's great, if we just turn this around, we can turn this around, and we're patriotic Americans? Would be the American military. No one's be more patriotic, Republican, right-wingish than the American military, right? I mean, more than like evangelical Christians would be the American military. And what this person told us, and I reported this about a week or two ago, is the military, the upper echelons, the elites of the military, are now telling people in the military, America is collapsing, it's going down, and there's nothing we can do about it. The military is saying this internally. The military elites, people who know much more about the state of the world, the state of the United States, the state of the government than I do. Since saying that, at least 3 of you, I think 4 of you now, at least 3 of you in my audience have contacted me either privately or publicly, and basically who are active military right now. So a lot of you guys in the military basically confirm this. Like, oh yeah, the elites, the generals, the people in the Pentagon are basically telling us America's fucked. They're saying things like America's fucked, that we can't fix it. We're saying things like we're not ready for what's coming, and they don't talk about what's coming. The military is telling this to people in the military internally. Do you think if there was someone you could vote for to fight to beat the woke left, you think the military would be like in that corner? You think they'd be aware of this? Your own military Americans are saying this internally. Are you getting the picture yet? And let me say this again. People with top secret military clearance are aware of things that you and I are not aware of. Much more detailed economic data, world data, geopolitical data that we don't have. And that's what they're saying. How much more fucking evidence do you need, you crazy bastards? As I've been saying for about 6 years now. How much more worse does this have to get? Next one. Next data point. I recently saw briefly a podcast with someone I'm not really familiar with, David Friedberg. He's a billionaire investment banker, entrepreneur guy. He was on Tim Bilyeu's podcast. I don't remember. A few notes of what he said. And again, these guys at these levels, these billionaires, are aware of things that we're not. Ray Dalio has already talked about this, how America's basically fucked, nothing to do about it. You think Ray Dalio knows some things that you and I maybe don't know? You think maybe guys like that, guys at that level? So here are some of his points. He said, quote, America is a car driving into a wall at full speed while our foot is pressed all the way down on the accelerator. Right. We are doing all the things right now, both the left and the right, the Democrats, Republicans, the Biden psychos, and the Trump idiots. We're all doing the things that caused this problem in the first place, and we're doubling down on all of them. I'll give you real numbers in a minute. All past, I already knew this. This is old, and some of you already know this. All past leading economies historically. Hang on, I need a drink. I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona. It's very dry here, so I'm drinking a lot. More than Dubai. Hang on. Drink a lot of water, I should say. All past empires, past leading economies, past big cultures have collapsed when their debt to GDP ratio went over 100%, between 100% and 150%. No society has survived 100 to 150% debt to GDP long term. They've all collapsed when they got into that zone. That means you have GDP and you have government debt. When you have that ratio, when government debt is more than GDP, more than 150, between 100 and 150%, so equal to or up to 150% of that number, nations collapse. So what is America's debt to GDP ratio right now? Well, I'll tell you. And you can Google these numbers if you don't believe me. All right. What is America's GDP right now? 25.4 trillion. That's America's GDP. Now, the reason I've mentioned this before, I don't like GDP because GDP, hang on a second here. I'm not big on GDP because GDP includes government spending. So government could just print a bunch of money and spend a bunch of money and say, look, our GDP is bigger. So I don't like GDP. I like other numbers. But anyway, that's the number everyone uses. So the United States GDP is 25.4 trillion. What is America's federal debt right now? 38.4 trillion. So GDP 25, debt 38.4. Now, before I get you to the actual numbers on the ratios, let me explain something to you that most of you don't know that I've been reporting on my blogs for years. Most of that 34 trillion, let's see here, half of that 34 trillion, half of it was only two presidents that you idiots voted for and that I didn't. 34 trillion, almost half of that was just two presidents in the last few years. While America was collapsing, they doubled it. Who do you think are the presidents that contributed to this debt the most? Who is the president who contributed the most debt? And they're both about equal. One's a little more than the other. All right, I'll give you the first one. Obama. Obama contributed $8.1 trillion to that debt figure. $8.1 trillion. Obama. Many of you worship Obama or worshipped Obama. You passed out. He would do speeches. You passed out about how great he was. A lot of you idiots back then wore T-shirts with his picture on it. Didn't you? You morons. Okay, next one. Who is the second president who contributed the other half? The other 8 trillion. 7.2 trillion to be exact. As I report in my blogs at the time when he did it, Trump. As I've said many times, Donald Trump is the biggest big government president, not just American history, but world history. Don't believe me? Go back and look at the number, the amount of money he spent, the amount of money he borrowed, and the amount of money he printed even before COVID. Now, let me say this. I talked about this in my blogs. It took something like 7 or 8 years for the United States government to add $1 trillion onto the debt. Trump did it in 6 months before the pandemic. Then 6 months later, he did it again before the pandemic. Trump is not just for big government. Trump is for massive government. He is the exact opposite of everything I believe in as a libertarian. In the middle of a collapse. So in the middle of a collapse, you're going to have people like Obama and Trump jack up spending to degrees we have never seen, not in American history, but all in human history. Now, before we get to the ratio numbers, who were the 2 most beloved presidents in the past 25 years by their own basis? Obama and Trump. So the 2 groups of people who worship these 2 men is most of the United States. This is why I've talked about how Americans have lost their basic ability to solve basic problems. This is why. There are many of you, listen to the sound of my voice right now, who either worship Trump or are real excited he's going to be president again. You are insane. You are not thinking rationally. Either you're insane in that you're not thinking rationally, which is most likely, or you're just dumb. It's possible you're just dumb. It's possible. You're probably just irrational and you're not thinking clearly. You hate Biden so much, you're going to vote for someone who's collapsing your country. Now, Biden's not great at it. He did 3.1 trillion. Or no, Biden did 2 point something trillion. But here's the thing. Those 2 presidents contributed 8 trillion each. Trump 7, Obama 8. The 3rd president on that list was George W. Bush, who contributed 3. And I said at the time when George Bush was president, this is the worst president of my lifetime, George W. Bush. And you have Trump and Obama who were worse than him. The American economy, the American zeitgeist, the American culture is run by 2 groups of people, one who worships Obama or people like Obama, and one who worships Trump or people like Trump, both of whom are directly contributing to the collapse of your country. So if your thing is we have to stand and fight, what you're probably thinking is stand and fight and vote for Trump, who is literally destroying your country right before your very eyes. Do you see why stand and fight doesn't make any sense anymore? You shouldn't be voting for Obama or Trump or Hillary or Joe Biden. If you were serious about this, and Americans aren't, you'd be voting for people like Ron Paul. Maybe people like RFK. RFK is not going to win a thing. Okay? Not that I like RFK. But if you were serious, you'd vote for people like that. Instead of Biden v. Trump again. How'd that work out last time? Okay. You get the point now? I'm going to give you some more numbers. So I just said GDP is 25.4. American debt is 38.4. If you don't believe me, Google the numbers yourselves. Never believe any number I say. Google it yourself. When I talk about things like monogamy and divorce on my other channel, if you don't believe the numbers, go Google them yourself and you'll see them yourself. Okay? So what is the debt to GDP ratio of the United States? I said countries collapse when they go to 100%, certainly by 100 to 150%. That's when they collapse. Debt to GDP ratio of the United States right now is, do your own math, 138%. Right? Now, it gets worse. And many of you know this. There is another number beyond U.S. debt called unfunded liabilities that is not counted toward the debt. This is the amount of money like Social Security, things like this, welfare benefits, things like that, VA, things like that, that are owed, the government owes to its citizens. That is not counted in the debt figure of 34.8. That number is an additional, doesn't include this, is an additional $80 trillion on top of the 33.4 trillion. So if you want to be technical about this, The debt isn't 34. The debt is 34 plus 80, whatever that is. Do some math. So if you factor that in there, what is the current debt to GDP ratio of the United States? When 100 to 150 is death zone, United States, if you add unfunded liabilities, by my math, is 466%. There is no standing and fighting. There is no defeating the left. There is no saving America. You're fucked. So you can either move out of the United States, which is what I did, or set up an international backup plan, which is also what I did. Or you can stay in the U.S., but you have to do the 6 things that I told you have to do. You have to, which is a little complicated. You have to have your own business. You have to be location dependent. You have to have customers outside the United States. You have to live nowhere near a city. You have to have 0 debt. Things you're not going to do. Things you and I both know you're not going to do. Okay? Someone is saying Trump only has a high number because of the pandemic. Incorrect. I just talked about how these things were before the pandemic. Go read my blog where I actually reported when Trump was jacking up trillions of dollars every 6 months before the pandemic ever started. That is incorrect. And some of it's because of the pandemic. The United States spent $13 trillion the pandemic and got nothing. It spent $12 trillion the war in Iraq and got nothing. Donald Trump printed up $6 trillion and got nothing. This is the guy that many of you are excited to vote for in November, you Americans. Is Biden bad? Yes. America is being run right now by a president who is so disabled, he has nothing on his schedule. This leaked a few weeks ago. Biden has nothing on his schedule. He wakes up and he might do a fundraiser or reads off a teleprompter, and that's all he does all day. Other people are running the United States. The president isn't even running the United States. That's also bad. But the problem is not get Trump or get Biden. The problem is if you're rational, and I've talked about this before, you should have looked at in 2016, 2017, oh my God, because this is my reaction. Hillary versus Trump, oh my God, I'm getting the fuck out of here. That's the rational response to when you see Hillary Clinton. 350 million people, and the only options I've got to vote for president are Hillary Clinton, one of the most biggest criminals in American politics, mainstream politics, and Donald Trump, a complete man-child who doesn't want to tell the truth. And what you guys did, most of you Americans, you just were like little robots. And instead of saying, oh my God, I need to make a change in my life, and you saw that happen, you said, okay, I have to follow my American societal programming, and I have to pick one. So now I got to get on the internet and start defending Trump. Or I got to get on the internet and start defending Hillary. Or now it's I got to get on the internet and start defending Biden, or in the internet and just start defending Trump. Instead of saying, oh my God, Trump v. Biden, I got to get the fuck out of here. Or at least set up an international backup plan. Okay. We do not have time here. A few more quick things. Then I'll get to some other stuff. Some other points this guy made. Reducing government spending and benefits is difficult in a democracy because voters often prioritize individual benefits over long-term national economic health. What have I been saying in my blogs for about 15 years? Democracy is a terrible way to run a country. You've been brainwashed to think a democracy is good. No, you wouldn't be in this mess if you had a democracy. The least bad countries, the least bad societies are benevolent non-democracies. Hong Kong, Singapore, Dubai, where I live. Are they perfect? No. But they're way fucking better in the United States, anywhere in Europe, certainly Western Europe, way better in Canada, way better in Australia. We don't have these problems in non-democratic countries that are benevolent. This is just going to get worse and worse and worse because, again, you have voters who don't know how to fix basic problems. Governments may engage in wars to stimulate the economy during high debt periods. Political and economic tensions between rising and declining superpowers often lead to conflict. I've talked about this. I don't believe there's going to be a World War III. I don't think the elites want that. Instead, you have a lot more little wars, lots of little wars, lots of things like what's going on in Israel, what's going on in Ukraine, a lot more of that stuff. Bad news. Income hasn't risen for a high percentage of Westerners over the last 10 years. Correct? Negatively impacting happiness in ways we have never seen in the Western world before. These aren't my words, these are his. Yeah. Many of you are in this category. Many of you are making the same amount of money, more or less, because you didn't follow my advice and start your location-dependent business. You're making the same amount of money you made about 10 years ago. Is rent the same? Is cost of housing the same? Are groceries the same price? No, because Trump and Biden and Obama keep printing up all these trillions of dollars and making things more expensive. Social media amplifies wealth disparities by showcasing the lifestyles of the rich and famous. Right. So now you have people not doing well, and they go on Instagram and they go, "Look at this fucking assholes." Many of you have done this over my other channel as it relates to women and dating and men. Well, there's all these chads. They have six-pack abs, and I can't get a girlfriend because I don't have a Lamborghini. You have that financially too. This is really critical. Cultural shifts toward victimhood and celebrity over hard work and innovation are directly contributing to Western collapse. That's exactly right. Victimhood and celebrity. That's where we're focused on, instead of hard work and innovation. Now, I know some of you are working hard. I understand that. You're an exception. And I know some of you are innovating. You're the exception. Okay. That was all preamble to the main points here. So the main points. Leaving the collapsing USA, cuckoo Canada, suicidal Europe, authoritarian Australia, leaving these countries gives you these benefits. Number one, biggest one, lower taxes. Main reason I did it. Plus lower cost of living means you get an immediate raise and improvement in your lifestyle without doing anything new. If your taxes go from 30% to 7% just by moving to another country, do the math. You just got a 23% increase in lifestyle. If your taxes go from 30% to 7%, and then your cost of living, you live in a country like Paraguay, which is 1/8 the expense of the United States, you now live like a king. You haven't done anything different. You have the same job, same business, same income. Kind of nice. Even in Dubai, I've talked about how things are cheap. A lot of things are cheap. A lot of things are. Massage therapist comes to my house for 90 minutes, gives me a massage, professional level massage, $60. I can have 2 maids come to my home, clean the entire home, 3-4 hours, $40 US. Can you do that in the US? No, you can't. Pink Firefly, he just had a couples massage here in Scottsdale, Arizona, hundreds of dollars. Okay, so that's the first benefit. Next one is improved personal life. If you're single, better dating opportunities. If you're not single, or if single or not, nicer people, easier people, people aren't stressed and pissed off about politics like Americans are. It's better. In Dubai and Paraguay, people are not angry about politics. They're not. It's just something you don't feel. As soon as you land in the United States, everyone's all pissed off, touchy. And next one, better long-term security and safety. I live in Dubai. How many nuclear weapons are pointed at me? 0. You live in the United States, Canada, UK, Australia. You know how many nuclear weapons are pointed at your head? Hundreds. I live in Dubai. How many terrorists are trying to kill me in Dubai? 0. You live in the United States, UK? You know how many terrorists are trying to kill you? Thousands all over the world. Increased happiness and reduced exposure to political conflicts. I'm in Paraguay. If there's a world war, Paraguay will be fine. You'll be fucked. Does any of this sound like cutting and running? No, it sounds like being smart and improving your life and doing better for yourself and better for your family. Well, just family second, but your inner circle, which I consider your spouse or serious girlfriend or boyfriend if you're a woman, and small children if you have. I just told you, and I just showed you how voting for Trump makes your country worse. So if your view is leaving is cutting and running, explain to me exactly what you're going to do to save America. You can't. I've used this example many times. I'm happy to use it again. People who think that they can vote for more Republicans and vote for Trump or people like Trump or the non-American equivalent if you live in the UK, Australia, Canada. I'm not just talking about Americans here. I'm talking about all Westerners. You people who think you could take your country back are the equivalent to the Japanese soldiers in the 1960s who still thought World War II was going on in these islands in the South Pacific. World War II was over in the 40s. There are these old men in the 60s, shooting at people thinking, well, we got to fight for Japan so Japan could win World War II. You lost 20 years ago. The right wing, and they're not called right wing anymore because they're not right wing. Conservatives, modern day conservatives, quote unquote, love big government. The right wing lost the culture war and lost the economic war back in 2010 when Obama was president. I didn't say it. Rush Limbaugh said it. He was right. He said conservatism has officially failed this country. And it has. You already lost a long time ago. You're fighting a war you already lost. Look at the number of teenagers in schools getting sex change operations. You lost. I'm sorry. Look at the latest stuff coming out of Hollywood, Disney. Look, go watch The Acolyte. You lost. You already lost. You can't fight a war you already lost. You can only be prudent about what to do now. Okay? I know this is emotionally difficult to admit. I understand that. I'm not an emotional guy, but I understand emotions. I've dated enough women in my life where I understand the concept. I get it. I know this is hard. It was a little difficult for me many, many years ago until I got over it. I got over it sooner than many of you did. You are not cutting and running. You're being smart. You've already lost. Your country's already gone. I mentioned Pink Firefly and I, my wife and I, just celebrated 4th of July a few days ago. We watched some really cool fireworks from her car because it was very hot outside. It was 114 that day. And I talked about, I've mentioned this before, when I celebrate the 4th of July, I celebrate America that was, the America I experienced in the 80s, early 90s, 70s, 60s, 50s, that America. The America that worked, it was great. That America's gone, it's never coming back. I'm not celebrating America now. America's dead, it's gone. America's already gone, you already lost it. Your best hope is that after the collapse, a bunch of little countries rise and some of them become America 2.0. That's going to take many decades, and there's nothing you can do to fix that or initiate that. Sorry. Move out of the United States or Canada, Europe, Australia, or if you just can't, in quotes, do that, set up an international backup plan. I'm going to Paraguay. We're probably going to do a second Paraguay event in October. Billy's probably going to do one herself because enough of you asked, you want to go back, but you couldn't come in June. We're probably going to do another one because we keep overflowing these Paraguay events. Mexico, Armenia, Dubai, lots of other countries too. We're working on Uruguay. I'll be in Uruguay this week. Give you a full report. Now, next one. What about my family? Caleb, I agree with you. America's collapsing and it's all fucked. Or Canada's collapsing or UK's collapsing. Okay, fine. What about my family? So first of all, your family, in my view, includes your spouse and your current small children. So I agree with you on the small children thing. I said the only excuse that I will accept from anyone saying I can't leave my country is you have small children with a woman or a man if you're a woman, and you're no longer with that person. You can't force that person to go, and you want to be a dad or mother to your kid. I'll accept that excuse. And even then, you can still travel abroad and do things, okay? But I'll accept the excuse you can't leave yet. So if you have little kids, yes. However, 90+% of the people say, what about my family? Are not talking about little kids. They're talking about grown adults. They're talking about mom, dad, uncle, grandma, grandpa, brother, cousin, shit like that. Look at my notes here. Hang on. When people say, what about my family? The implication is, therefore, I will do nothing. Well, my uncle, so I'm not going to do anything. Well, what about my mom? And the unspoken addition to that sentence is, therefore, I'm not going to do anything. You are irrational. You're being psychotic. You're being stupid. You're being insane. I'm going to sit here and just go down with the ship because of my mom. You're not thinking clearly. You're not thinking rationally. You're not being objective and rational. I love my family. I just saw my family 2 weeks ago. Love my parents. I have 2 grown children, one of which is already out of the country. One of them is, the second one's working on it. Okay. You can visit your parents. I just did it. I'm coming. God forbid I'm coming back in November for fucking Thanksgiving here. I don't want to do it, but I'm doing it for my family. Fine. I agree that family's important. Am I going to immolate myself because my family's being a bunch of assholes? No, I'm not. I'm an adult. I'm not a child, neither are you. Next one. You don't have to necessarily move. At the bare minimum, you can set up an international backup plan, which means there's another country somewhere far away from the West that's not a Western country. You have full residency there. It can be temporary residency. That's okay. As long as you have legal residency, you've got a bank account in that country, you have a debit card in that country, you have some stuff there, and you understand the lay of the land. That's it. You set that up. That's good enough. That's fine. So when America gets really bad, I don't know how much worse you could get it, but okay. So you just can't stand it. You have somewhere to go. Or if there's another pandemic, you have somewhere to go. Or if there's a war, you have somewhere to go. Right now, you have nowhere to go. You're fucked. So no one's saying it. And also, this moving out of the country thing, you should. No one said you should move out of the country tomorrow morning or this Saturday. I would. I did. But you don't have to. Make a plan to do. I can't. I don't know where to go. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, sit down, make a plan, and do it. It might. Maybe you do it next summer. Okay, summer of 2025. I'm out of here. Great. Get to fucking work and stop making excuses about your dad. Next one. You cannot force adults to do anything. If you explain to your dad, your mom, your brother, your cousin, whatever, hey, this country's going down, Trump makes it worse, Biden makes it worse, everyone's an idiot, the economy, and you give them all the data and resources I've talked about and other people have talked about, and they go, fuck you, I'm staying. You can't make them do anything. What are you going to do? Force them on the plane? You're going to hog tie your dad, get him on the plane, or put him at gunpoint and take him on the plane? What are you going to do? He's making his own decision. Your dad is an adult. Your mom is an adult. Your grown children, your grown siblings, your aunts and these are adults making their own choices. Let them make their own choices. Over at my other brand, I talk about outcome independence and not telling people what to do, and that makes you more happy. Let them do what they want. But that's sad. Yes, I have some people in my family, and I have some people in my personal life, people I know, friends, okay, things like that, who are doing horrible things in their lives. Horrible things. What am I going to do? I'm going to go over there and say, okay, stop doing that? Am I going to camp out there 24/7 and make certain people not do drugs or not be in a relationship or not? No, they're adults making their own choices. You've got to let go. Let it go. Let it go. Just like the song in Frozen. Na, 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 anymore. Let it go. You got to let it go. And if you can't let it go, you'll never be happy. Here's the example I've given. I'll use the example of your dad. You can put your mom in there, whoever you're worried about. But what about my cousin? Okay, let's say it's your dad. Give you the worst one. Your dad, right? You're in a burning house. The house is burning down around you. You and your dad are in the living room. The house is burning down. Your dad's sitting on his rocking chair. You say, Dad, we got to go. The house is burning down. We're going to die. Your dad says, fuck you. I'm like, well, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving this house. It's my house. I was born in this house. I'm going to stay in this house. Dirk. Okay. What is your answer? So you've got three choices. You can say, okay, Daddy, I'll stay here and die with you. You're insane and stupid. That's what you're implying. You say, what about my family? You're going to stay in the burning house because your dad won't leave? I wouldn't. I'd leave. That's option two. Dad, I love you. Please, I would plead with him. Please, I love you. Come with me, please. Fuck you. I'm not leaving. Okay, I love you. I would kiss him on the forehead and I would leave and I would live and live a great life and my dad would die and I'd be sad. That's what I would do. Your only option, the third option, is to beat up your dad, knock him out somehow, hog tie him and drag him out of the house. That's not an option. We're talking about moving to another country. Can't do that. How do you physically force someone to move to another country? You can't do it. Now, if you have more money, you can say, hey, Mom, come with me and I'll help support you. And that's an option. Sure. But that's, again, she can say, fuck you, I'm not leaving. So by you saying, what about my family? What you're saying is, I'm going to stay here in the burning house and die with my family because I'm a fucking moron. You're a moron. Next thing. Well, Caleb, they guilt trip me. They guilt trip me. Okay, let them guilt trip you. By the way, in my other brand, I've written entire articles about soft nexting certain toxic family members. I've had to do this in my past. My wife has had to do this in her past. Sometimes you need to let certain family members go. If they keep guilt tripping you, oh, you're leaving me. You can come with me. Fuck you. I'm not leaving. Goodbye. Maybe you don't talk to some of these people for 2 years. Maybe you don't go to Christmas for 2 years. Sometimes in life you have to do this. We can't choose our families, can we? That's a valid thing. I'm not saying you abandon them forever. I said soft next, which is a temporary removal of their lives for a year or two. I've had to do this. If my mom or anyone in my family was guilt tripping me about this shit, promise you, I'd be out of their life. I'd be gone, hell and gone. They wouldn't hear from me for at least 2 years. At least. Have some balls, including if you're a woman. Women can have balls, metaphorical balls. Men and women here. Have some balls. I don't care. Love is conditional. And so you could reach a point where you don't love your parents anymore, or your sister, or your brother, if they act like total assholes for long term. There's times you just need to cut it off or put it on pause for 2 years. Last one. When you move to another country, you'll be paying less taxes and often less cost of living, or both. You'll be able to make more money. You will be in a better position to save your family if you make more money. You will not be making more money, with rare exception, if you stay in the collapsing West. My income has gone way up since I left the United States. My net after-tax income has gone way up, because I fucking left. And now I'm in a position where I can help people a little better than I could before. And going forward the rest of my life, majorly. Okay? What are points about that? I'll get to your questions. You need to be objective. You need to be rational. You need to take your emotions out of this and make these decisions a little more coldly than, but Trump is awesome, but what about my mom? You have to look at the data and make decisions that way. And I know that's hard, especially if you Americans. Americans are the most irrational I've ever seen any culture in my entire life. Modern day Americans. Americans weren't always like this. Okay. Questions? Got a lot of them. Hang on. While I look at the questions, let me know, Billy floated this idea to me this morning. Let me know if you guys would be interested in doing a Unchained CEO and or Alpha Male 2.0 coaching cruise. It'd be several $1,000s, but wouldn't be lots of thousands. Anywhere in the world, where we have a bunch of people, like 20 guys and or women, coming on with us, with Billy and the other coaches, and we have a cruise. We do trainings in the cruise. I'm going to include the cost of your cruise and your flight and all that stuff as one big thing. So you just pay one check and it's covered. We're looking at doing that stuff, so maybe later this year, early next. So if you're interested in doing that, give me an idea of if you would do it. It would cost several $1,000s. So if you're very poor, this wouldn't work. And what parts of the world where you would do it. We're looking at like the Caribbean. We're looking at the Mediterranean. I'm doing a Middle Eastern cruise. I'm heading Dubai, Qatar, and Bahrain either in December or January. Do that. There's an Alaskan cruise for you Americans or Canadians. Let me know if you're interested in that, because we're mapping out the live events for the next 18 months right now. And that was the idea Billy had. I thought it was a pretty good idea. So if you're interested in doing that, let us know. Yes, we're still doing the Antarctica thing potentially, but that's very expensive. So we'll see how many people sign up for that, and we'll decide on that one. Cool. Okay. Let me zoom up the comments because I can't see. Hang on. That's too big, Caleb. Let's see. Where are we here? How do you find such people and build relationships that are mutually uplifting? You're talking about people who love you. I am not the person to ask about that. I am an introvert. I'm not. I get questions like, Caleb, how do I make friends? I don't really have any friends outside of my personal life and my work. I don't have friends. I'm not the guy to ask about this. I don't know. You have something called the internet. Ask the internet. It'll tell you a lot of techniques. Pink Firefly, when we were in Dubai, she went on the Tinder for friends, where women can meet other women as friends. She found friends that way. How do I find people to contact when doing market research for micro niches when I'm limited to how many people I can filter by? For example, young American remote tech workers that live abroad. First of all, that's not a niche. Second of all, there's millions of people in that niche you could contact. That question makes no sense. Now doing the Alpha 2.0 business course. Good. Caleb, what do you think about moving to Tashkent to build a business? Lifestyle wouldn't be great, but economy has a mega opportunity. I agree, but again, keep your business location dependent. So if you're dealing with Tashkent clients, make sure you can deliver it without physically being there. Very important. What are the differences between the Founder's Sanctum and 9-Day Business Builder? Both have group coaching calls. Radical difference. The coaching calls are completely different. In Founder's Sanctum, they're just Q&A calls. You ask questions. That's it. There's no agenda or curriculum. They don't tell you to do anything. And that's all you get are calls. 90 Business Builder, you get tons of how-to videos. You get a community. You get several message boards. You get round-the-clock support in basic gas questions 24/7 to coaches for 90 fucking days. The coaching calls are based on certain topics, and you get 3 or 4 a week. You get minimum 3. There's really 4 or 5 additional ones we've added. And it's a curriculum. We tell you exactly what to do. Do this, then this week do that, then this week do that. It's a sequence of assignments we give you. It's a completely different program. They're not even comparable. Founder Sanctum is for someone who already has a business or is starting a business. You know what business you're going to start. The war in Ukraine and the collapse of the US dollar wouldn't have happened under Trump. Fact. That is not a fact. Incorrect. NATO still screwed Putin over. And Putin is still a brutal dictator. Both sides are wrong. Could the end of the U.S. hegemony and the petrodollar potentially help Europe as it leads to a rapprochement of Europe with Russia and Asia? No. Europe is in bigger trouble economically than the United States. They may soon start a war, a World War III Pacific War between China and India and others in Pakistan still on. Have you ever heard of this, or what do you think? I don't agree. I do not. You will. I personally think you will not see any world-scale World War III type wars. You will see lots of proxy wars. So you can see proxy wars or actions taken between those countries, but not full-on war. The elites want to stay in power, and they know a World War III would violate that. No elites, with rare exception, want a World War III. They want war, not World War III. Or else you would have had it. I've talked about this in great detail in my blogs and other podcasts I've done. You would have already had World War III many, many times over. Is that something elites wanted? What long-term effects will Brexit have? Does it make matters worse or slow down the collapse? You're only talking about the UK specifically. I don't know. I've not done enough research on Brexit to give I have some guesses, but I don't want to give you guesses. I don't know. I've not done enough research. I only answer questions on things I've researched. Here's the deal. Very similar to Mexico, the UK could clean up their act anytime they wanted to, but they don't want to. They don't want to. You know, the Palestinian Authority, Palestinians, when they got their land back in 2006, that was 2006. They could be Dubai by now. Palestine, Gaza, whatever, could be Dubai, but they chose not to do that. So what the UK is doing is not directly because of Brexit. It's because of 14,000 other decisions. They don't want to fix their shit. Look what they just elected. And I'm talking about the voters too. The voters too, not just the government, the voters too. Everything I said about stupid Trump supporters applies to UK and Canada for what passes for conservatives in those countries too. Nobody wants to do what's correct. Nobody wants to do what they need to do. This bottle's so big I've used 2 hands. I'm in LA for a few weeks, not on my own will. How can I maximize my time here in Alpha 2.0 business mindset? Sit down once a week, plan out your week. Every day, every night, plan out the next day. What are you exactly going to do the next day? And when are you going to do it? That's what I do. That's what I do. That's even more important when you travel. That's what I do myself. The National Police in Canada is saying the same thing. Heavily redacted memo got into the news a few months ago. They say bad times are coming over the next few years. Glad I'm gone. Yeah. The elites know everything I've been saying for many, many, many years. I was talking about the collapse of the West in 2012, and people called me crazy. Not everybody, but a lot of people are like, oh, what the fuck? Everything's fine. They knew back then too. The elites know this stuff. It's just these delusional people who think they could vote for Bernie Sanders or RFK or Donald Trump and fix these problems. I got the hell out of the U.S. last weekend. Cool. It was a nightmare to get here to the DR and later to Colombia, but I'm done with the U.S. Fantastic. I remember that feeling. I read a big section of my book about that feeling I had when I stepped over that threshold to the jetway on the jet leaving the United States for the last time as a U.S. citizen or U.S. resident, should I say. Yep. Stuck in another country with the USD value hits the floor. I've seen broke-ass Americans overseas. Not a good prospect. It's going to be a mess. When the dollar collapses, it's going to be a mess for Americans. And it's going to be a mess for Americans all over the world. Yeah. You need to start de-dollarizing. I've already started doing that myself. I started doing that several years ago. I have de-dollarizing. Still plenty of dollars. Okay, I'm not saying do it right now, but yeah, plan for the future. Many European countries have debt to GDP ratios way lower than that of US. Yeah, correct. Germany, for example, is 60% lower than China's. What does that mean? Yeah, the Americans have been making fun of Western Europeans, calling them socialists all these years. And now America is far more socialist than any, including Scandinavia. I mean, I read books in the 2000s written by Americans making fun of Scandinavia because Scandinavian countries had 100% debt to GDP ratio. America has at best 137% now. America has become what it's been making fun of for years. In the 80s, we all made fun in the Americans. The big thing in America in the 80s was making fun of the Russians for being in Afghanistan for so long. Like, oh, these stupid Russians. You don't want to go to war in Afghanistan and sit there for what a stupid thing. I can't believe how stupid these Russians are. What did America do? Longest war in American history is in Afghanistan. America has become a parody of itself. Yeah, I know. I wish we had Trump in the UK. You the same guy who talks us crazy? You are the same guy. Trump would not fix a goddamn thing in the UK. You're fantasizing. My ancestors left Europe for a better life, and that is seen as a good thing. There's nothing wrong with leaving. Right. Some of you made that point before. Our ancestors who left Europe didn't try to take over, take out the king and get a new government in the UK and France. They just fucking left. And that was the smart play. That was the smart move. That was the brave move. The people leaving the US, Canada, Western Europe, Australia are the brave ones. We are the brave ones. You people staying around are the pussies. That's exactly right. Exactly right. Now, if this was 1986, different story. It's not. It's the 2020s in the middle of the collapsing empire. Bro, you going to do any Alpha 2.0 in-person events in the US? Not for the rest of the year, I don't think. Am I? Next year, yes. This year, I don't think so. I will do something next year for you guys. In light of Western collapse, what will happen to professional sports? Will professional athletes cease to? No, that'll never go away. It'll just change. No. People like sports. No. Honestly, who cares if moving abroad is cutting and running? I'm here to live my most fulfilling life possible, not sacrifice myself for a culture that hates me. Precisely. That's why I don't understand these conservatives. We got to save America. Why? You want to save a bunch of woke socialists who hate you? You're not making any sense, guys. Here's the thing. If the Trump right was about secession, instead of like voting for Trump and we'll make America great again, dumbasses. No, if instead, let's all move to Texas and let's fucking secede from the union and make our own country, I'd be behind that. I'd be totally, well, let's all move to New Hampshire, which they tried, okay, and then let's secede. Different story. This is a very different conversation talking about secession, but they don't talk about that. And I'm in Arizona, which used to be a red state, now a blue state. Texas is already a purple state. Texas is not right wing. Armenia is done. Okay, you talked about it last time. Okay. Isn't the collapse of the Western world basically a plan by the elites since the 60s? Not the collapse. No, the rejiggering has been the plan, not collapse. They don't want to collapse. If you're the elite, you don't want everything to collapse. You want to maintain your power. Is New Zealand an international backup plan in place? No, you can use it as a flag if you wish. It is part of the West. New Zealand and Australia are part of the West. They are not collapsing. They are stagnating. No. Go find out how much tax. What's the VAT in New Zealand? What's the income tax in New Zealand? Yeah. Love New Zealand. Love to visit. When you formulate your personal code, how did you know it was the one? I waited a few weeks and didn't need to change anything. Did you hear that Joe Biden is refusing to accept his poll numbers are worse than even Kamala and Trump? His arrogance and thirst for power is pathetic. Yes, it is. As is Kamala's, as is Trump's. There's no good guys here. They're all arrogant and have thirst for power. Yes. I just think it's going to be really interesting if Biden steps aside and they run Michelle Obama. You Trump guys are going to have a real problem then. And it won't make any difference. If the next president is Biden, Trump, or Michelle Obama, or Kamala Harris, if doesn't matter. You're still fucked. I just demonstrated that a few minutes ago. But you'll still be mad. You'll be mad for no reason, but you'll be mad. Begin an international lifestyle, staying outside the USA 10 months out of the year, but not able to renounce US citizenship anytime soon. I understand. I can't renounce mine either. So that's a longer plan thing. It's okay. You'll get there. I'll get there. This year is the first year I will be in the United States under my 35 days. First time. Because every year, first year was like 120 days. Then it was like 110. Then it was like 87. Every year it gets less and less. This is the first year, 2024. I'm going to be under my 35 days. So I get 100% of my deduction. Awesome. What are some cities you recommend as a U.S. home base that make it easy to get out of Dodge? That question makes literally no sense. I'm trying to leave the United States. What city in the United States should I live in, Caleb? I'm thinking Orlando, Florida as an option right now. That question makes no sense. Get out. If you're not going to get out right now, stay where you are and work hard to get out as fast as you can. If you're going to focus on moving from Denver, Colorado to Florida to Miami, you're wasting your time and wasting resources to reduce the amount of time you can leave the country. So your question makes no sense. No excuses to leave. You have kids and your parents, second cousins, friends are trying to convince you to stay because of them. Your duty is to do right by your kids first and foremost. Correct. I've said the exact same thing. Correct. The only excuse that is valid is if you're no longer with baby mama and you can't force her to leave and you can't take the kid legally. Then you're kind of fucked. But if you're still with that woman, if you're married and you're together and you have little kids, there are lots of families who moved abroad with little kids. They do just fine. Lots in Dubai. I just saw a little YouTube video of like a mom and a dad and two little kids living on a boat. Great. Homeschool your kids. Works great. It's fine. Women have internal balls are called ovaries. It's true. It's true. And if you don't have kids, then your parents should want you to do what's best for yourself, which is not staying with them to collapsing west. It's selfish for them to want you to stick around. Correct. I mentioned that. I said that in different ways. If your parents are guilt tripping you, they're being asshole parents. My son left the United States before I did. And I said, good job. Good for you. Live your best life. I want my children to be happy. If they're not happy in the U.S., I want them to be somewhere else. I'm not going to say, stay here with me. You're an asshole. That'd be a horrible thing for a parent to say. And to be fair, some of you have horrible parents. I know. Some people very close to me have horrible parents. I don't have horrible parents, right? But a lot of you do. And it sucks. Alpha Tupido business, cruise, fuck yeah. Caribbean, Colombia, Venezuela, Brazil. Okay. I am interested. Okay. Send me an email and or leave a comment on this video if you watch the replay. Would you be interested in a cruise, coaching cruise? Yes or no? And then where you would like to go. You can leave a comment. You can put it in the live chat here if you're live. You can send me an email at theonlyblackdragon@gmail.com. Theonlyblackdragon@gmail.com. Okay? Send that and let me know. And if we get enough of you saying yes, we will do it. We'll do it as a test run. If it works great, we'll do it regularly. We can have a regular thing. Just try not to get too fat. These fucking cruises, they're not good for diets. Cool. Wouldn't you say America was always doomed to fail eventually since it enacted a central bank and left the gold standard? Yes. Yes, I said the true beginning of the end began in 1913. The collapse began in the late 90s, or let's say 9/11, around the year 2000. But the seeds were sown in 1913 with, yes, not going off the gold standard per se, but certainly the central bank, the initiation of the income tax, and the direct election of senators, all of which happened in 1913. Yep. This is how empires always collapse throughout time due to manipulation. That's correct. Yeah, this is all very predictable. Yeah. Yeah. I'd be interested in a Caribbean cruise, but after I get my location of income next year. So we could gain girls in all those coastal cities. Okay, I got it. Well, we have to make a decision if it's an Alpha Tupido cruise or an Unchained CEO cruise. So state that if you have a preference, because that would be a different type of cruise. Going back to my previous question, how is young American remote tech workers that live abroad not a market niche? Not specific enough. Too broad. Yes, it's too broad. Wait, there's millions of those people. Millions of remote tech workers who live abroad. Millions and millions and millions and millions. Way too many. What type? What age? What gender? What industry? What objectives? What marital status? What countries? There's so many ways you can narrow that down. You need to narrow that way down. That is not niched enough, not even close. Do you think China will invade Taiwan once the U.S. is weak enough? Yes, but that's going to be a very long time. China wants to invade Taiwan far more than Putin ever wanted to invade Ukraine. But they can't. But they want to. And so, yeah, the only thing stopping the U.S. And so, yes, the answer I think is yes. But that could be 50 years from now, 100 years from now. And, you know, the AI could take over by then. And maybe that'll never happen because of AI. And so, yeah. How would you recommend trying to tell family and friends about the collapse? Actually sit down with them or just drop hints, whatever's appropriate. How do you think I would do it? Always ask, what would Caleb do? You think I would drop little casual hints? You think that's how I would do it? Or I'd sit down and say, hey, this country is going down and you're going to be fucked. Here's why. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. Dad, mom, sister, brother. That's what I would do. That's what I've done. I've done this with both my parents. I don't care about brothers and sisters. I've done both my parents. And by the way, they agree with me. Now, they agree with me more about political. Both my parents are extreme left-wing, woke, Bernie Sanders left-wingers. So they're pissed about the Christian right and Trump. And, well, if Trump wins, I'm going to look. But they both say I'm too old. My parents in their 80s, they're elderly, and they don't move very well. So I give them a pass on that one. But no, I would just tell them. Fucking tell them. Don't leave hints. Leave hints. Demographics are destiny. True. Do you plan on renouncing U.S. citizenship in the coming years? Very soon, yes. I can't give details about that, but yes. Big yes, very soon. What countries have the best future economic prospects in Southeast Asia? All of them except Laos. So every Southeast Asian country, to some degree or other, has a very bright future, except Laos. Stay out of Laos. Other Laos, you're good. The top ones are Vietnam and Cambodia, but all the rest. Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, sort of. Thailand, not as much as before, but yes. Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar, all of them, just not Laos. What will happen to people's houses when the collapse happens? They will lose their homes. They will lose their homes. Banks will call them loans, and they'll be on the street, unless you own it. If your house is paid for, then your property tax is going to skyrocket. What's your advice to those who can't leave the U.S. right away because they need to sell a house, get affairs in order, but establish residency elsewhere and have a location dependent self-employed job? Sit down and make a plan with a date. I will be out of the United States by this date. December 2024, January 15th, 2025. Set a date, and you make a plan, which is a to-do list. A plan is basically a complicated to-do list. I need to do this first. I need to do this, then do this, then this, and then set a deadline. Don't say, I need to do this, and someday I'll leave. That's what most people do. They never leave. And 5 years from now, you'll still be there to be fucked. Homeless people, and you'll be on heroin, and right? So you set a deadline with a plan. By the way, that's exactly what I did. I set a date in the calendar. I said, I got to have these things done. I got them fucking done, and I left. I left early because my plan was 2025. Then I saw in 2020, I said, oh, no, I'm not waiting 2025. Oh, fuck that. I'm out of here now. If one is already retired, then it's all about dollar conversions to the new flag. Then one can kiss goodbye the pension and Social Security, I guess. Yes. If this happens, and again, the dollar's not going to collapse anytime soon. It's going to be a long time. So I don't know how old you are. You may be dead by the time that happens. I don't know how old you are. So it's not going to have any tune. But yes, when it happens, if you're on Social Security, you're fucked. Those of you who are not yet on Social Security, which is most of you, I'm not on either, don't plan on any governmental assistance if you live in the West. I've said this in my books. If you live in the West and you have any sort of government pension, government whatever, Social Security doesn't, but I put into it, it doesn't matter. Don't plan on ever getting seeing that money ever again. You will not get it. I'm not planning on ever getting 1 penny of Social Security from the United States government ever in my life. And I'm 52. And most of you are younger than me. You're definitely not getting it. You're not, and if you, and I've said this before, as a minarchist libertarian, I walk my talk. If I do get it, I will donate it all to charity, but I'm not going to get it. I'm just planning on never getting it. What do you think of guys that get a wife and all their flags and jump the paper and to jump the paperwork and housing and stuff? Ask me on my other channel. That is a woman question. Are you attending Andrew Henderson's event in Malaysia this year? I am not. Eventually, I'm going to have to. I keep not having. They keep being at the wrong times. So eventually, I'm going to have to do that. Caleb, what are you going to do when AI is a million times smarter than you and can work 24/7? I addressed that about 4 or 5 weeks ago. Listen to the last live stream / podcast I did on AI, the very last one I did about 4 or 5 weeks ago. I'll go into detail about that. Do you have to change your U.S. identification to a state with no income tax and before you further national citizenship? No, you do that before you leave the U.S. So if you don't leave, if you're out of the U.S., you should have already done that. You do that before you leave the U.S., not before you renounce. Not sure if it's similar to the US, but in the UK, most new credit creation is done by the commercial banks in the City of London. Yes, correct. Not the central bank, regardless of the outcome is the same. More or less the same. In some ways, the UK is even worse because UK is basically a big bank for the world. It doesn't create anything or do anything. It manages other people's money at this point. That's kind of what the UK is now, which is not a good place to be right now. Beginning of the end was the 13th Amendment. Which amendment was that? People have no skin in the game are the ones irresponsible, should be able to vote. Oh, I see. Okay. Except the draft, non-taxpayers, career criminals. So I've said many times, democracy is one of the worst ways to run a country. If I were in charge of America, it would not be a democracy. People don't realize that at the founding of the United States, 1776, and for many years, most white men could not vote. And people go, what? That's bullshit. They're all focused on black people and women. Most white men could not vote at the beginning of the United States for many years because the founding fathers knew, they were very clear in the documentation, how bad democracy is. We don't want democracy. It's a mess. We want a constitutional republic, which didn't last very long. So correct. You don't want people voting. If you want freedom and prosperity, you want the minimum number of people voting if you have a democracy, which is the exact opposite of American societal programming. If you want a good country, you don't want a democracy at all. You want a benevolent, non-democratic government that has goals for the country that are beneficial to the people in that country. Hong Kong, where it used to be Hong Kong, Singapore, Dubai. Singapore, Dubai in particular. Are these places perfect? No. But these are benevolent non-democracies that want everyone in their country to be very wealthy. That's what you want to live in. Next best option is a democracy that has no money and can't do anything, like Paraguay. They have a democracy there, but the government's poor, can't do anything. Historically, Mexico was like that too. Government couldn't do anything. Great. That's the next best option. The government leaves you alone. So that's why South America is so attractive. Government that leaves you alone. Is Bolivia good? It's okay. There are better places in South America, in my opinion. How are we doing on time here? I'm going to go in about 2-3 minutes. Is college still a waste of time? Yes. If a particular field of study is your passion and part of your mission? Yes. What if you go to college after achieving financial independence? That's okay. If you achieve financial independence, you have millions of dollars, and you can do whatever you want, then go to college for fun. That's the best time to go to college. I talked this with my friends who all went to college. The best, and they all say the same thing. These guys went to college. The best time to go to college is when you don't need to, and you're old, and you don't give a fuck. Like the movie Old School, where they're all in their 40s, they go to college and they don't give a shit. That's when you go to college. Go to college when it doesn't fucking matter. I mean, at some point, I wouldn't do this now because there's so many online versions of college. But if there weren't online versions of training, I would go back to college now and take a few classes to learn things because I wouldn't need it. Yes, that's fine. But doing it now? No, terrible idea. Do you think the founding fathers should have put an amendment to separate money in the state? How would that work? This is something that they missed that would have let the U.S. last longer. I don't know what you mean by that. Separate money inside, that doesn't make sense to me. You need to have taxes. As a minarchist libertarian, you still need taxes. Now, the way I would do it is, I talk about this in my blogs. You can read my articles how I would do it. You set up a country that is not a democracy. Okay. You have a VAT, a VAT, or a sales tax that's like 1, 2, or 3% countrywide, and that's the only tax there is. There are no other taxes. no income tax, similar to Dubai. No property taxes, no income taxes, no corporate taxes, no capital gains taxes, no estate taxes, nothing. Nothing. Just a flat, small sales tax. That's all you need to run a very effective government in a free, prosperous country. That's how we do it. Okay, last question. Do you see any countries in the future adopting Bitcoin like El Salvador did? No, I do not see that. El Salvador is a strong outlier. I do not see that at all. The elites hate Bitcoin. They have now accepted Bitcoin, which is now my opinion. Bitcoin has changed in the last year or so because they finally accepted it and surrendered to it, which is a very big deal for Bitcoin. It's very good, but they don't like it. No, they want, what they're going to do is they're going to have their own cryptos. China coin, Fed coin, and that'll be bad. So start buying your Monero. An amendment to only use gold. Oh, I see. That is a complicated topic. Going off the gold standard was bad. However, you also don't want a country where your entire economy is based on how much gold is mined out of the earth. That's also bad. So the way I would do it, I've already talked about my blogs, is instead of, if I was the emperor of a country, instead of locking the value of my currency to the value of gold, it would be a formula. And I wouldn't be able to do this because I need some economists to help me do this because I know where I'm not smart. It would be a formula based on the price of gold. So the price of gold would be a strong factor in the formula, but you could go beyond it. But there'd be a limit to how much you could do. Instead of now, Donald Trump can print up $6 trillion, whatever the fuck he wants, and Biden can print up $5 trillion, whatever the hell he wants, and Obama and Bush can print whatever the fuck they feel like it, and no one, that's insanity. There'd be a limit on it, but it'd be a limit based on the price of gold, but not tied to the price of gold. I think that's going too far the other direction. And I used to be a hardcore gold guy, gold Austrian, price of gold, God damn it. Yeah, there's some benefits of, so if it's a spectrum and lock the price of gold is on the right, on the left is do whatever the fuck you want. I'm like right here, right toward the right, but not quite. Okay, 2 more questions. I gotta go. How do you know if the chances for something happening are lower than 2%? You do the research. ChatGPT can help you, and Perplexity AI can help you with this. What if you can't figure out the percentage and it's something that could matter a lot? You get a close estimate. There's no such thing as I have no idea. You can figure out a close estimate. Germany is looking really bad right now. I've been saying that for about 12 years. Germany is on the tip of the spear for the Western collapse. It will be the first Western nation to collapse. Before America, before UK, it'll be Germany. Germany's fucked. And this is the place I recently wanted to visit when I was a little kid. Hey, it's a great place to visit as long as you avoid all the graffiti. Pink Firefly and I went there a few years ago. We love, Germany's awesome, but just try to stay out of Berlin, I guess, because it's just depressing. The people are nice. Food's good. The trains don't work very well. Nothing works very well there. I told stories about Germany on my blog, but anyway. Cool. All right. There will be no Alpha 2.0 live stream this week. I will be traveling, so I apologize for that. Next week, I'm back on my normal schedule. I will see you guys very soon. Let me know about having a cruise. Have fun.